What's up, everybody? This is Karak with ACG, and as always, it's my continuing mission to bring you reviews that aren't 2 minutes long or filled with sponsored bullcrap. Today, I'm stoked to be bringing you the review for Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus, taking place shortly after the assassination of General Death's Head. BJ Blazkowicz and team go out in a last bid to save the future from an enemy mired in the past. So let's see how the world's coolest named protagonist does against a regime that somehow took over the world but can't draw their symbols straight. As always, if you like the video, maybe subscribe. So here's my review for Wolfenstein 2. Nazis who love strawberry shakes, dual wielding because one gun is stupid, and phantom limb syndrome. Graphics are up first. You know, Wolfenstein 2 not only looks absolutely amazing, but it actually runs the same. It doesn't matter if you're creeping up on casual talking Nazis who are discussing the local news or you're walking down the world's scariest main street. The game looks incredible. Much of this is more due to the design than just technical prowess, though that's there as well. The choice of slightly saturated color across the spectrum makes the locations pop a bit, but it's the particle effects that are stunning. The first time you evaporate a bad guy with a lightning/microwave gun and see a bit of their skeleton flash as their cells burn off their moisture is a disturbing thing of beauty, and there is something both a bit ominous and a bit hilarious about sprinting through the drifting body parts of enemies as you evaporate them, then you run through their ashes and take out the enemy behind them with a well-placed blade to the neck and nuts. Now, level design for the most part is stellar from the beginning sections inside a massive airship taking out enemies hundreds of feet in the air to more sedate pieces where BJ is reminiscing, or should I say nightmaring, about his childhood, while a train ride and the discrete color and illumination there are probably the highlights of the levels for me. Also, though, are the hub locations, which are fantastic. The main place is a massive submarine, and it changes as the story continues, and you gain on allies via the missions, and it takes on this home away from home refuge. It still has that Wolfenstein humor, like a child falling asleep in a rocket launcher ammo box, but man, it looks amazing while doing it. Also, the cutscenes are incredibly well done, well, for a Wolfenstein game, and while they may not have the brunt fidelity that some other titles stand out and have, they do include very well done facial animation, eyes that look almost natural, and an excellent overall vision for physically telling animation, whether it be comedy or drama. It is some poignant stuff, and it's certainly noticeable. Sadly, there are some issues here. While I adored the larger city pieces, we do again have some fairly strict level design, even in the more open locations, and you find yourself forced into very small sections that are passable, despite an entire section looking like you can leap, climb, or run through it. It's disappointing. Additionally, the game continues to love its corridors, and even in the big bunker levels, it's still some corridors in a bigger area. And though there are specific locations that, as I said, are open and certainly more energetic when it comes to their level design, much of the game is infiltrating and then escaping enemy bases, which lowers the overall effect. Another problem that does crop up is that the game has some rough textures in various places. Now, let's be honest, most of the time you're sprinting through defeated enemies and watching robots explode, but anytime the game slows down, and make no mistake, this game does so more than any Wolfenstein prior due to trying to tell its story, you can see a bit of how that digital sausage is being made. Now, when it comes to performance, the consoles are at 1080p and 60 FPS, with the PS4 Pro and Xbox X doing some kind of 4K, whether it be native or it be checkerboard. When it comes to the PC, there are a ton of options for graphics, allowing you to choose even different levels of filtering for some of the effects. I was really impressed by that. And with the i7 at 4.2 and a 1080, I was able to get this at 4K and to run somewhere close to 60 FPS, but I could certainly get it locked at 1440p. And honestly, with the amount of stuff that's going on, I was quite happy with that. Your mileage is going to vary, but it seems like the game is fairly well optimized for a PC title that isn't even out yet. Sound, music, and voice.
Hey, big friend. You better watch out for the crocodiles.
Crocodiles?
It's not New York underground crawling with crocodiles.
Oh no, I'm from Texas.
And of course, let's do music first. And easily best music in a Wolfenstein game, and honestly, some of my favorite music in any game this year. Mick Gordon and team deliver something that is almost intoxicatingly crunchy at times, but to me, the best parts are the layered bits when you're just starting to get into actions and enemies are alerting to your presence, and there is this insanely deep synth that can rise and fall, almost like a slow-motion robotic heartbeat. Fantastic stuff, and this occurs and reoccurs many times in the title. It'll draw comparisons to Doom simply due to the sound and who's worked on it, and I think that that's probably the best kudo you can give it. Overall, I was highly impressed by the music. Sound. It's pretty good. It doesn't have many options, which is sad, other than layering, but some of the layering and mixing issues of the past at least seem to have been fixed here, because there were some issues in those prior games. It has fairly good channel separation, which works well to inform the gamer of an enemy trying to sneak up behind them, and it handles height actually really well with a combination of different processing effects, and you can literally tell when a robot's terrassing on top of the train trying to get into you and find out what your gooey bits taste like. Weapon sounds are done really well, including a nice throaty shotgun blast that's exactly the anti-stealth weapon that you've always wanted, but so many games seem to miss, and its rapid-fire thunder is almost deafening inside some of the smaller locations. Now, the issue I noticed with the demo, which was where the weapons were layered much lower than they should have been, seemed to be fixed even on default here, but you do have those adjustments if you want to make them. Altogether, I'd say pretty good sound. And of course, that brings us to voice. And kudos, it is fantastic. Simply fantastic. Who'd have thought a game like this would be known for its well-done voice and story, but Wolfenstein is deeply ingrained in its storytelling, and while humor does for sure continue from start to finish, the fact is it's never really delivered 100% tongue-in-cheek, but more with a knowing wink. One standout is a fantastic conspiracy theorist character whose delivery and ultimate tone is really fatalistic as well as sort of hopeful at the same time, and it's weird and interesting to see a single character able to pull that off, but boom, he does. Or the main baddie, Irene, the Nazi leader who looks like she's had a one-night stand with a chainsaw and thought, you know what, that wasn't so bad, and returned like 3 or 4 more times. She's fun and warped in a way in which the character seems to enjoy themselves doing things that are just terrible, and that is seen every time on the screen and played off perfectly. Seriously, this is the kind of person that asks why you don't say I love you back when they make you a card out of their own skin for Valentine's Day. It's rare we see a shooter where everyone is on this high level when it comes to the voice acting, but they are, especially one particular character you see later on, not necessarily at the end, but about 3/4 through the game. It's a particular actor who I was surprised to see in a video game and did just insanely well as sort of a character that is in some way a part of BJ's past. And of course, that brings us to gameplay and a bit about the story. So you play as BJ Blazkowicz, and after a nice deep what happened last time on Wolfenstein kind of flashback, you're thrust insanely quickly into the story, which involves an unlikely team of allies as you make one last attempt to put it to the Nazi regime. Now, entering the fray at first, most gamers are going to be intimately familiar with the gameplay as you enter various mission locales, and for the most part see if you can thwart the enemy's plans by simply leaving no enemies left behind to do it. And listen, Wolfenstein's always been about sprinting through levels, pressing E as fast as you can, and sucking up weapons like a crew-cut-driven Hoover vacuum. And nothing has really changed here. Wolf can be played slow, and that works well for the most part, and you do have some skills here that allow you to adjust to that. But honestly, to me at least, it's best when it's played fast, when you're practically skating through the levels at full speed, hatchet-driven death parkour at its best, I'd say. And a great deal of that is because of its tight control. Switching between a rapid-fire shotgun and up-close fire axe action is incredibly smooth, and it's nailed. And of course, based on that solid gameplay, you have dual wielding and various upgrades to the guns, because being able to tear the face off a robot with a fire axe just isn't bad enough. So you have guns that have the expected add-ons like larger magazines, silencers, scopes, and otherwise. And each weapon has a unique feel to them, with weight, recoil, and rate of fire offering variations, and it allows each one to the next to feel just a little bit different, and it actually makes some changes in longer distance engagements depending on the gun you chose, and I really like that. But you know what? About halfway through this game, something interesting happened. And it's not to say that the starting half was boring. It's not. It's excellent Wolfenstein gameplay as you become a bedtime story that Nazis probably tell their kids. But about halfway through, you get one of 3 gadgets: crazy robotic stilts, an armored upper body so you can ram through walls or enemies, or the ability to squeeze your body down by wearing a mechanical man corset and humping into spots you shouldn't be able to. Each comes with a couple various skills attached to them beyond the main one. but it's how they affect the gameplay that works so well. There's not a bunch, but what they do is dynamic. The stilts not only allow for you to get to higher locations, but it also allows for you to use areas and things in the geometry as cover that were too high to be used before, like the sign of a building. It's a small add, but it offers a tremendous amount of flexibility. Additionally, you can leap from high areas and deploy them, stopping fall damage, while the armored upper body allows for you to thunder through enemies, knocking them aside as you go. And in a game with this much sprinting anyway, I can see a lot of folks actually choosing that one. A little bit less useful, or at least to me less interesting, was the Constrictor Vest, and even its side skills like scaring enemies when they see you felt a bit tacked on and sort of not connected to the actual contraption. But overall, they all did change the way the game played. And it just so happens that here too the story explodes, and far be it from me to pretend I am not surprised when a shooter called Wolfenstein, with a protagonist named after many people's favorite late night activity, has a story that is actually downright excellent. It's rare that we see a good character study on any first-person protagonist, and even more so in games like this, but lo and behold, at various times you get to understand BJ's life through flashbacks tied to current locations and events, and it's dark. And the reason why it may be so engaging, at least to me, is that for the most part, it doesn't get into the way of the game. It doesn't stop anything. Instead, it augments and aligns with the game, leaving very little wasted space. And it makes you begin to question why other games don't have cutscenes like this. It's just really well done. Now, as you guys know, I test games on all difficulties from easy to the hardest to see where they fit. Middle difficulty here works for normal gamers who don't play FPS shooters that often, with options above increasingly more lethal and below increasingly less so. Enemies flank and weave and do use the locations for cover. But on all difficulties, you do see some peculiarities, like enemies that hide in cover on your side of the cover, or ones that stand around a corner but leave an arm and a leg out. So far, it looks like they're having a stroke and forgot where the left side of their bodies are. Now, that being said, the enemy's makeup is fantastic as a group. And yes, you do get the typical into the level, open the door kind of bad guy who walks out in mere moments. But for the normal parts, the gameplay locations enemies are a great mix of energy-wielding, quick-dashing robots and heavy shotgun-carrying SWAT members that really do add some challenge. Wolfenstein 2 offers some unique gameplay. It's not going to surprise a lot of Wolf fans because you can't really do that with just one or two changes like the gadgets. But it doesn't bring any undue problems in. It adds those gadgets, and it adds an incredible story. And the game itself runs a bit over 12 hours if played reactively, while just looking around for every item in a level and finding the secrets is going to add to that tremendously, as well as if you decide to do the entire thing on a harder or an easier difficulty. That'll all change how long the game lasts. But overall, it felt nice for a single-player title. Fun factor. Yeah, it's a blast. While aside from some of the upgrades and contraptions, it doesn't offer many new elements, but it does offer excellence that I think many want from a Wolfenstein game, and the speed of play, the smattering of more open locations, and the novelty of having your own sub and crew and the little stories that play out there made this a sit down and play from beginning to end title for me. Phenomenal fun from start to finish. So as you guys know, I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or never touched again rating scale, with rent being replaced by deep sale on PC. This is easily a buy, even though it is a single player game, doesn't have multiplayer. The fact is that Wolfenstein is really enjoyable as a title, and it does have some open areas that could offer you a good amount of flexibility and replayability. They have a ton of things you can find, secrets and so forth, that could definitely keep you returning if you're that kind of fan. So anyway, that's it for me. I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Maybe check out Twitter or become a patron. If you do, that's how I continue to give you guys reviews that aren't 2 minutes long and filled with sponsored bullcrap. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your week.